Yes, this is our this is Dr. Senthil Kumar, Associate Professor, Department of EEE, SNS College of Technology. The previous video series we discussed about a biological neural network. You mean a biological brain neurons. We discussed about what is neuron, what are all the input terminals, what is the cell, and what is the output, and how the signal has been transmitted from the input to the output as a parallel process. Now here from the brain analogy, a neural network or an artificial neural network derives. A typical artificial neural network is shown here. A typical artificial neural network is shown here. The input, which is blue, yellow, and red, or any color, where it may be n number of inputs, which is nothing but the inputs as dendrites as the input, and the nodes and the neurons is nothing but the cell body, or it is called as soma, and the synapses is the output part, where the weight of the number of inputs and the signals has to be accumulated or calculated. You mean here, as per the figure shown here, it is only 3, x1, x2, and xn. Let me assume it is 3, x3. Therefore, 3 input dendrites or 3 input signals, and the weight of the signal is also calculated as W1, W2, and W3 or Wn. The number of input is 3, and its weight of the corresponding input as W1, W2, W3. The summation of all the products of the inputs and the weights of the inputs. The summation of the product of the inputs and weight of inputs. You mean x1 into W1 plus x2 into W2 plus x3 into W3 plus xn into Wn goes on. As the input signal, which is your electrochemical signal, which is given to the neuron, and the neuron calculates as per the pattern already programmed, and if the threshold value is reached, then there may be an output, which is nothing but an electrical pulse, similar to our axon. There may be an electrical pulse. Therefore, the x1 into W1 plus x2 into W2 plus xn into Wn, the weight of the corresponding signals is added together, summed together, and is given to the neurons, and the neuron accumulates all these signals, and if a threshold value is reached, then there may be an output. Which is similar to the analogy of a choke in a fluorescent lamp. I think that you know the purpose of choke. The ordinary fluorescent lamp is 3 feet length. The ordinary fluorescent lamp is approximately 3 feet length, or it is 1 meter, and at both the end there may be a filaments, and in order to make the filament glow, nearly 1000 voltage has to be generated, and this 1000 voltage is generated with the help of a choke and a starter assembly. A choke generates 1000 voltage, and the 1000 voltage is released with the help of a starter, such that there may be an electrical flicker between the two elements of a fluorescent lamp, and if the 1000 voltage is reached, then the fluorescent lamp glows. There is a threshold value is nothing but 1000 voltage. Here again there is a threshold value for neurons also. See here, the relationship between a biological neurons and then artificial neural network is nothing but the cell nucleus is nothing but the nodes. You mean soma is nothing but the nodes, and synapses is the output. Synapses and axon is the output terminals. Whereas synapses is used to generate that electrochemical fluid. Axon is the output terminals, and the input is nothing but the dendrites. Whereas our human brain has nearly 1000 billion, you mean 10 to the power of 10 neurons. Therefore, we can say that a human brain is made up of an incredibly parallel process. Incredible parallel process. See here the architecture. The architecture may consist of a number of layers. Architecture may consist of a number of layers. One is the input layers, nothing but the dendrites. The output layers, your axon and synapses. And there may be several hidden layers. It may be 1, 2, 3, up to n. All these several hidden layers is similar to our soma or a cell body, which decides the threshold value, and when and what has to be communicated to the output. It decides the threshold value and when and what signal has to be communicated to the output layer, right? When and what. That is very important point. It looks like a number of layers. When and what. See here the input layer. Which is yes. See here the input layer. Yes. The input layer is, as the name suggests, it has several different formats of input. You mean it accepts several different formats of input. You mean one input may be from the let me assume if it is a human brain, one input may be from the finger, or another input may be from the bottom of the leg. The third input may be from the ear. In similar way, there may be, and the signal format is also different. Whereas all the signal formats are accepted by the input layer, accepted by the dendrites, and it is forwarded to number of hidden layers, where the hidden layers calculate the patterns which is already given, which is already programmed. A number of patterns will be there in the hidden layer, such that it decides where to send. It's similar to the match the following. It's similar to what you study in your schools. It is a match the following. Only one input will be there. I think that you might have heard in your digital electronics, it is a multiplexer, many into one, and a demultiplexer, one into many, such that the signal has to be transmitted from the input signal to the output signal, where the hidden layer decides where the signal has to be sent, or the recipient of the signal layers, and how much the quantity of the signal has to be sent. It is decided by the hidden layers, whereas the output layer is decided by the hidden layers. Whereas the output layers is nothing but the axon, where a series of transformation of hidden layer results. And where the signal has to be conveyed at last to the output layer. Whereas it computes, the hidden layer computes the number of inputs and the weighted sum of the inputs, including the biasing value. And generally these computational equations is represented in terms of a transfer function. Now let me see the advantages and the disadvantages of the artificial neural network architecture. An advantage is nothing but we can implement the task in a linear program control, since it is the input, hidden layers, and the output is there. Therefore, it is a linear program control, and therefore no reprogramming is required, and it can be executed in any applications. The very good application let me see in the next video series. Whereas the disadvantage is nothing but in order to operate this, a training is required. And the structure of the neural network is separate from the structure of microprocessors. The structure of the neural network is separate from the structure of microprocessors, since microprocessors already studied by the electrical engineering persons. And it also needs, since there is very high number of parallel processing units similar to our brain, it needs a high processing time. The high processing time is the one of the main disadvantage of artificial neural network. Hope you understand the architecture, a simple architecture of an ANN. In detail, let me see in the next video series. Thank you. Thank you for patient listening.